Hello, everybody. My name is MJ the Tutor, and you are listening to Accounting Makes Sense, an MJ the Tutor podcast. This podcast focuses on helping accounting students all over the world by offering a quick warm up on various accounting and business topics that hopefully leads to the generation of bigger discussions and conversation. Today's episode is not necessarily CIMA centric, but it is a term we should be familiar with if you've ever come across with relevant cost, which is a concept used in decision making, focusing only on the costs and revenues that will change as a result of a specific decision. Now, I don't think I've ever done an episode where I've done everything for relevant costs, but I do remember having a blog post about it, talking about buying a printer. And I also remember an older episode I did with regards to opportunity cost. So I'll link those up on the show notes if you want to check them out. Anyway, today's topic, as mentioned, is not necessarily something we've studied in detail through CIMA, but it is a fascinating topic that can really make or break your decision-making skills in business, and honestly, in life too. We're going to be talking about sunk cost fallacy. Now, it probably sounds like some dry economic theory, but just stick with me and you'll see how this little concept can affect everything from investments to personal projects. So, let's break this down. What is sunk cost fallacy? You must have already heard these phrases before. We've come this far. We can't let all this effort go to waste. We're in too deep. It's too late to back out now. Let's just finish what we started. And my favorite, we've got too much skin in the game. Sunk cost fallacy is all about how we, as humans, have a natural tendency to keep investing in something simply because we've already put so much into it. Imagine you bought tickets to a concert, but on the day of the event, you're feeling under the weather. Instead of staying home and resting, you drag yourself to the concert because you don't want to waste the money you spent on the tickets. Sound familiar? That's the sunk cost fallacy at work. The rational decision would be to rest up and cut your losses, but because you've already invested money into the tickets, it feels like you have to go, even if it's not the best choice for you. Obviously, this is not a good decision. If you're sick, you shouldn't be spreading your germs at a concert. But that's another point. Now, let's scale this up and try and relate it to the business world. This is where things get a bit more interesting and potentially more expensive than concert tickets. Businesses are constantly making decisions about where to allocate resources, whether that's money, time, or manpower. But here's the thing. Sometimes, despite all the signs that the project isn't working out, companies continue throwing resources at it. Why? Because they've already spent so much on it. It's like they're caught in a cycle where they just can't let go. So an example of this is maybe, let's say your company has a big, expensive marketing campaign that it just launched. Only you find out that this campaign didn't really resonate with your customers. But instead of pulling back on the campaign, the company, you, decide to pump even more money into it, hoping that eventually it'll pay off. But in reality, they're just digging a deeper hole. You're just digging a deeper hole. The rational move would have been to stop, reassess, maybe even scrap the campaign altogether if it was not working. But the sunk cost fallacy makes it hard to do that because no one wants to feel like they've wasted money and time and effort on it. So why is it important to recognize and pull out of this fallacy? Well, first off, it's about being smart with your resources. Whether you're running a small business or a giant corporation, resources are finite. If you're pouring them into a failing project, you're not just losing more money, you're also missing out on opportunities that could be far more successful. Imagine if instead of clinging to that marketing campaign, the company redirected its budget to a different strategy that actually resonated with customers. The difference could have been huge. Another key reason to watch out for the sunk cost fallacy is that it impacts your decision-making process. When you're too focused on what you've already invested, it clouds your judgment about what's the best course of action in moving forward. This can lead to a series of poor decisions that snowball over time, turning a small problem, to start with, into a major setback. Let's take this further and talk about financial health. We've all seen companies that continue to throw good money after bad, and the result can be devastating. For example, think about the tech industry. There have been countless startups that raise millions in funding, only to find out that their product didn't have the market demand they expected. Instead of pivoting or cutting their losses, they keep spending, hoping that with just a bit more investment, they'll turn things around. But more often than not, this only leads to greater losses, and in some cases, complete bankruptcy. And it's not just about the money. There's also morale affected. If you're a leader and you keep pushing a failing project just because of past investments, it can be incredibly demoralizing for your team. Imagine working hard on something that everyone knows isn't going anywhere, but you're told to keep at it because we've already come this far. It's frustrating. It can lead to burnout and a loss of trust in leadership. On the flip side, being able to recognize when to pull the plug can actually boost morale. It shows your team that you're committed to making smart, forward-thinking decisions, not just stubbornly sticking to a plan that's clearly not working. So, how do we avoid this? Falling deep into this sunk cost fallacy? It starts with awareness. Make it a habit to regularly reassess your projects, and don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. Is this really working? Is there a better use of our resources? What's the opportunity cost of continuing down this path? Sometimes, the best decision you can make is to cut your losses and move on to something new. Now, before I wrap up this episode, I want to touch on something important. While we've spent a lot of time today talking about the dangers of the sunk cost fallacy and how it can lead you down the wrong path to something that's not working, there's also the other side of the argument to consider. It's the idea of giving up too quickly and using the fallacy as a crutch to justify not seeing things through. You see, the concept of cutting losses is incredibly powerful, but it shouldn't be an excuse to abandon projects at the first sign of trouble. In business, persistence and resilience are just as important as knowing when to walk away. Some of the most successful companies out there have faced challenges, setbacks, and even failures along the way. But they didn't just throw in the towel at the first obstacle. They adapted, pivoted, and kept pushing forward. How do you strike that balance? It's very strategic. Ask yourself, is this temporary, or are there fundamental issues with this project? Have I given this project enough time and resources to truly gauge its potential, or am I reacting too quickly to early difficulties? Initial failures are just part of the process. With a bit of perseverance, you can turn things around. The key is to be honest with yourself about whether you're sticking with something because it still has potential, or if you're just holding on because you're being sentimental about your past investment. Don't be afraid to let go. At the same time, don't let fear of falling or failing into the fallacy prevent you from giving the project the time and effort it needs to succeed. Anyway, that is it for me today. I'm your host, MJ the Tutor. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I'll see you again next time. If you found this helpful, please be sure to subscribe or follow to catch the release of the next episode. You can also connect with me on various social media like Facebook, Instagram, X under the handle MJ the Tutor. You can also visit my website www.mjthetutor.com. Till next time, ciao for now!